Welcome to Saturday Science Home Edition. This is our third activity. My name is Nick. I am a graduate student at Columbia University, and I'm interested in studying how memories are made and stored in the brain of a mouse. Today we'll be making our very own brain hats, which we can use to show off which parts of our brains do different things. If you picked up one of our kits a few weeks ago, then you already have most of your supplies. If not, you need printouts of the brain hat, which you can find on our website at bit.ly/satsci20, coloring utensils like crayons or colored pencils, tape, and scissors. Just be sure to get an adult to help you. But first, a little bit of background. Our brains are divided into two symmetrical halves, the left and the right hemispheres. Now, you might have heard more logical people described as left-brained and more creative people described as right-brained, and that broad distinction is a bit of a myth. Both sides of your brain do a lot of the same things, and they do them equally well. However, there are a couple cases where one side of the brain is especially good at something. For example, the left half of the brain is more involved in processing language and sequences, while the right half of the brain helps you stay aware of the space around you and is involved in expressing intense emotion. But we'll see more of these functions on our brain hats later as well. Here we see two diagrams of a human brain from the side. On the left, you can see that each hemisphere is divided into four lobes: frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. On the right, you can see the sorts of functions each part of these lobes is responsible for. For example, in the front of the brain, the frontal lobe is responsible for attention and planning, while towards the back of the brain, the occipital lobe processes what you see with your eyes. But how do we know which brain regions are involved in all of these different functions? One method, called magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, uses special magnets to create images of the brain. A type of MRI, called functional MRI, or fMRI, can provide information about where and when the brain is activated while someone does all sorts of tasks. For example, these are called activation maps. In the top row of these fMRI images, the language center in the frontal lobe is activated to understand words. However, in the bottom row of images, completely different areas are activated in the temporal, parietal, and occipital lobes when a person sees a picture of a scene. Now that we know all about brain regions, let's make our hats so we can show them off. First, cut out both sides of the brain hat, including the little pieces in the corners called the cerebellum. Next, color the lobes of your brain any way you'd like. I chose to color just one half of my brain, but you can color both. Also, I made a mistake here. The motor cortex is part of the frontal lobe, not the parietal lobe. So make sure to color the sensory cortex like the parietal lobe, but the motor cortex like the frontal lobe. Oops. Along the outer edge of both sides of the brain, there are 8 spots to carefully cut slits in the brain so it can fold into a hat. Be sure to cut on the solid lines. For each slit, tuck the area of the triangle under the cut edge and tape over the overlap. Do this for all of the slits on each half of the brain. Your brain should have a nice curve to it, like this. Now do the same for the other side. Now let's combine the two sides. To put the two halves together, turn them over and work along the inside seam. Start at one end and match the sides. Secure with tape and then work your way along, inch by inch, taping each section as you go. Lastly, tape each half of the cerebellum in the back of the brain under each occipital lobe, taping the white flaps to the inside of the hat. Your cerebellum is responsible for balance and muscle memory. And that's it! Wear your hat around and show everyone how cool our brains are. You can even turn it into a game. Have someone else point out a function on your hat, and you do that function as quickly as you can. Or, if you have a friend or a sibling who also made a hat, you can race to see who can find different parts of the brain first. This was our last Saturday Science Home Edition episode of the season. Check back with us again in spring 2021 for an all-new set of fun neuroscience activities that you can do from home. Thanks for tuning in.